Welcome to the Landscaping Podcast. My name's Joel Barnett, and in today's episode I'm talking with Tristan Pearce from Tristan Pearce Landscape Architecture. Tristan is a landscape architect from Western Australia, and he does his own 3D designs as well, which are quite incredible to look at. That's worth checking out his Instagram page for that. And he also won a couple of awards at the West Australian Landscape Designers Awards only a few days after our chat. So we didn't touch on that, but we did talk about the fact that he does his own 3D design and also how he goes about getting the budget of clients on what they wanted to spend on their projects. So that was an interesting way that he goes about that. So hopefully you enjoy this chat with Tristan Pearce. Tristan, thanks for joining us on the Landscaping Podcast. So the first thing I'd like to ask you is how you got into to be a landscape architect where you are at the moment.
Yeah, I probably fell into it a little bit. I sort of always liked to do art at high school, and I was probably weirdly, good at, not too bad at maths and the sort of sciences as well. So I went off to uni, I've got three brothers, so I followed my two oldest brothers to uni and started doing science. So I did physics and chemistry, which it turned out that wasn't for me at all. So I had a year off after. I think I had a year off after that, and then I was just looking around at things. How could you somehow make a living out of doing some form of art? And I probably see landscape architecture and design as a form of art, as well as I do landscape construction, to be honest. So yeah, that's pretty much how I got into it. It's a bit organic as well. So. So I kind of sort of fell into it through nearly failing other things, really.
Oh, that's good. It's not a bad way to do it. So how did you study landscape architecture straight after that?
Yeah, so I did landscape architecture at University of Western Australia. So I wasn't the best student, to be honest. So I took a little bit longer than which I think is actually quite common with that kind of degree, and just went straight into that, and then so sort of did okay at that, and it was very commercially slanted at the time. So I was sort of I enjoyed it, but probably where I am now, not quite as much with the residential side of things. Yeah.
So is it? Do you know if it's changed a lot now? Because I know you said it was commercially slanted. Because I looked into landscape architecture many years ago, but it looked like there's a lot of town planning kind of stuff in there. Is that what? Yeah. Is that kind of what it was like when you did?
Yeah. But there's some funny. I think it was probably a new degree when I did it, and we sort of did a fair bit with the architects. We did. I did like a geography unit, which I was useless at, and it was sort of a little bit irrelevant, to be honest. I mean, you probably need to sort of know generally a bit of general geography, but I think they were trying to find their feet as well. Look, I believe it's come. It's probably evolved naturally with other degrees over time. But yeah, there were some really cool ones like that you probably wouldn't do now, like a bit of. I made a pond out of concrete, and just sort of stuff that was kind of a little bit more practical. So, and then I did an art theory sort of unit, and so it was quite a mixed bag. So I learned you learn a lot of different things, in that degree, and I think one of the lecturers used to say. Our job is to know a little bit about a lot, because we're kind of trying to bring bits and pieces together, much like I think landscape contractors are very similar when you look at what their scope is. You've got a pool builder who does a pool, but landscaper just really brings all that stuff together. So I think we just do this sort of the front end side of that, which is the design side. So it was being a mixed bag probably was quite right.
Yeah. And what year was that you started studying?
Would have been, I reckon 97. I would have probably started landscape architecture, so I finished probably around. I reckon I probably took 5 years to do it, which is a 4-year degree, and would have finished about 2002, I think. Yeah.
And where'd you go after that? Did you start working somewhere else?
Yeah. I went straight to a commercial landscape architecture firm, and that was it was called Blackwell and Associates, and it was a lady, Marion Blackwell was the mum of the owner, and she was a really quite a well-known horticulturalist in Western Australia. So she's discovered a few plants and stuff. So and that was a really great experience from a commercial perspective. I was involved in a few big projects commercially, and yeah, learnt heaps about just documentation, just by sitting next to people, and learning all the computer skills. So yeah, learned a lot of computer skills there. Yeah, so that was
So
great.
was the computer program they were using the same as what you've gone on to use now?
Yeah. I would use AutoCAD, but I mean SketchUp came in later, which I prefer. I prefer a lot of components about SketchUp, but we still use AutoCAD. I can't quite you know, evolve away from it because it's very good at there's little tight sort of skills that you need to do that. It does it very well. But yeah, we still use the same things, but I'd love to get to a package where we're doing everything in one package like architects do. We're not quite there yet, but hopefully soon. Yeah.
So how long were you working there for at that particular place?
I was there for, I reckon I think I was there for 3 or 4 years. And then, yeah, I got a, you know, sort of, I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it. And I went to the US. I just went for a 3-month I did a massive project. It was called Scarborough Foreshore. Scarborough is a beach over here. Did a massive job, and really probably by the end of that project, I was just ready to have a bit of an extended break. And I had a mate coming back from the UK, and I said, look, I'll meet you over there, and we'll just go to the US for 3 months. And you know, we went over there, and I sort of had a great time. And you know, when you kind of go away from things for a little bit, and you kind of realize that you go, you know, probably need a bit of a change. So yeah, when I came back, I was sort of probably on the lookout, and I was probably more interested in the residential side of things, and sort of probably with commercial, it takes a lot longer to sort of get projects happening, and there's a lot of front end stuff. Whereas with a residential job, you could probably design something, and you know, depending on what the, you know, if there's any building license or engineering required, like if it's just purely planting, you get going tomorrow. So I think that's really a really nice part about residential, and you kind of can remain really involved, and there's not so many people in the process. So I was sort of on the lookout for that, and there's a company that was Design and Construct over here that were probably the biggest players in that space, and did some really great residential projects. So I went and caught up with those guys, and ended up, you know, getting into a role there. And I was there for 11 years. So it was obviously, you know, I had a really good experience there, and yeah, just really learnt heaps and heaps about, probably the best thing I learnt was going out on site and talking to construction guys about how things actually go together. If I sort of think back to that, that was and you know, just really getting that on-site exposure, and people being really frank with you as, hey mate, that's not actually going to stand up. So yeah, so that was a really a very valuable experience for me. Yeah,
that's good that they're actually giving you that information as well, rather than just whinging about it, keeping it to themselves. It's good that you can actually do that, so then everyone benefits from that.
That's right. And what, you know, you get better as a designer, and the next time that kind of thing comes up, you go, oh yeah, that's right, we've got to do this and that. So yeah, very much fast tracked, sort of getting a bit better as a designer. Yeah.
And then out to work for yourself after that?
Yeah, so I ran the design team at this company, and then I thought, I just got to a point where I was I don't know, I think I'd probably outgrown that experience, and you know, just needed a new challenge. So probably, I think it was 4 years ago nearly now, just sort of thought, you know what, just I've never dreamt of having my own business. It's not really something I had aspired to. And I thought, oh, well, I'll just, there's nowhere else I really want to go. I might as well just do my own thing, and sort of departed there, and yeah, pretty much just have been busy ever since. So it's been, fantastic, I really enjoy it. And I was just thinking to myself today, like, I probably wouldn't, I just love having my own business, and really flexibility with lots of different bits and pieces, and, sort of time I work a lot at night, and, I went to the gym this morning after I dropped the kids off. So, it's just living, you live your life a bit differently to the 9 to 5. Yeah.
Yeah. There's flexibility sometimes, and other times there's not, because there's no one else to do stuff to get done.
Yeah. There's definitely good with the bad. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, overall, obviously, I have my own business, so I like doing it as well. But I saw about a month ago you were looking for new staff. So how many staff do you have at the moment?
Yeah, I've just got one at the moment. So we're sort of on the lookout for another one, and there's been some good applicants, but yeah, we're still sort of tossing that idea around. And I'm kind of a big believer in, when you meet the right person, you just go, that's the right person. So whether it happens now or later, I'm not, we just have to say no to work effectively, which is a great position to be in. So we're sort of looking at that, but it's probably just maintaining a level of quality, and enjoying the job probably takes precedence to all of that. Yeah, so we are still looking, but it will just need to, just be just the right person. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely understand what you're saying there. I'll just put an ad out for a new apprentice, and I'm not going to put one on just for the sake of it. Like, if you don't find the right person, there's no point putting them on, because it's only going to last a short amount of time, and then for whatever reason you didn't want to put them on initially will come to the fore, and you'll be back to where you started from.
And they end up in a position where they're like, they've gone and probably maybe quit a job to come to you, and then, it's not fair on them as well. Yeah, it's a really tough one. Staff is probably the hardest part of having a business, I think. So just got to get it right, get that. You just got to get the I think you've got to get the fit right, and they need to resonate with the team as well. So
you could have someone who's actually good at their job, but they may not fit into your team. So you need a bit of both.
Yeah.
Now, so we actually have something in common. We've both been a guest on the Green Room podcast that Shah Turner from Pitchbox did. So how do you know Shah?
Yeah, so I was, when I was at my last place, so I actually got him he applied for a job there, and we employed him there, and he came, I can't remember where he was, I should know. I think he was in the Philippines at that point in time, or Langkawi, I think he was in. And he had a little studio there, I think. And then he came to Perth, lived near me, and we're really very good friends now. So we worked together for a few years. Yeah, great guy, and very good friend of mine. So so I still use his old company now, Pitchbox, and that's a very big help, that one.
Yeah. So do you do any of the 3D yourself, or do you get Pitchbox to do that part of it?
Yeah, look, the only thing we get Pitchbox to do would be the house. Sort of, if we have like a survey and drawings or photos, they sometimes have to work off. We get them to do the base house, and then we just take it from there. We probably, because of the detail that we design our projects to and how we work, and not having a construction arm, that's sort of our role to take that over. Yeah, I've contemplated that, but probably I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. So the nature of that, I'd probably just try to keep it all a little bit more in house. And so not saying that they wouldn't do it really well. It's just that it's probably more me than
no, that makes sense. Now with doing them themselves, what sort of time frame is it from meeting the client to them getting a 3D design? Because I've seen some of your 3D designs are quite incredible and detailed.
Yeah, they're pretty detailed, and the computers we have to run them are pretty amped up. So Look, I mean, I'm probably if I didn't have anything like no other projects on, I could probably do a concept within a couple of weeks. But because of the, we've got lots of multiple projects going on at the same time, we're out at about 8 weeks at the moment. Just purely through how much we've got already in the pipeline. So but also I think most people will come to me with a long lead time anyway, so at the start of a build. So it's not a massive stress, and we'll do a lot of architect kind of jobs. I would probably think about a job for 2 weeks, weirdly enough. And sort of, I reckon I'd sort of look at a bit of reference material, just start thinking about it and thinking about the space, and then just start sort of straight into 3D. So we do it a bit differently to a few other people. We go straight into 3D first, and then start pushing all around, and and then just when you bring it into the render package as well, it sort of starts to take a bit more time to do the videos and things like that. So quite bespoke, but yeah, it definitely has a little bit of lead time to get to that first presentation. However, we probably get pretty close to clients' brief and budget because we take a bit longer to get that first concept out.
Yeah, you don't want to just get them something within 2 weeks just so you can meet that time frame, and then you've got to completely redo it anyway because you didn't really pay attention.
Yeah, and I reckon I'll sort of like to think that we'd never put something out that we're really, really happy with. But when you're a small business, or probably, I don't know if it's just a small business thing, but if I go back to clients and say, look, I'm sorry, we just need another week, we just haven't quite nailed it. They're like, no, absolutely, we want to make sure you're happy with it. And clients are generally really good about that kind of thing, because they can see they're going to get a superior product if they wait just a little bit longer.
Yep. How do you go about getting the budget off them?
Probably because we don't build, I think I've got more of a, it's a little bit flippant when I talk about it, which is not the worst thing in the world. I think, I do kind of know loosely, maybe I don't anymore because it's been a while, but where I've had to quote jobs. But, I'll just probably really just say, look, what is the scope that you want? Is it a pool? Do you want a structure? Do you want this, that, and the other? And then I find that people won't say any figures at all unless you just start throwing figures out there. So I'll go, look, your pool's 50, your pavements are going to be another 60, plantings 30, garden lighting's another 10 to 15, irrigation 8. I just start, and one of them, you'll find that one of them will just start adding it up in their head, and then they go, oh, that's about 250 or whatever, and you go, well, I mean, we can always maybe, scale up and down plants, and your pavement might be a beautiful stone, or it might be a little bit wound back, and you might be able to get it back to, and then they'll go to you, we've got 150 grand, what can you do for that? I find that's how you just get from A to B, and then you go, yeah, sure, all right, well, we can do this. So that's how we drag it out. However, and I always say this to clients, they're almost as responsible about for their budget as we are, and it's a little bit of a trap if you design to a budget. To design to a budget is it has to come from everybody. It can't just be the designer. It's got to be, well, not everybody, not the contractors. There's nothing they can do about it. The client's got to say, okay, we can't actually do that beautiful screen that we want if we want to get it to the budget. So just going through the D&C process that I've been through, and having to have sold landscapes of types and quote them, just got to a point where it's just, you might as well just be really frank with people. Yeah,
you got to work it out eventually anyway. So.
Well, that's exactly right. They actually really appreciate it when you start talking about it straight away, and they say, oh, and even if you're on the phone and someone rings up, and I get it a lot, and I say, oh, look, what are you after? And they go, what do you mean? I'm like, well, do you want this, that, and the other? And I'll just sort of say, if you want a concrete pool, it's going to be this, and fiberglass a bit less, and just start throwing figures around, even on the first phone call. And if they say, oh, actually, we only want to do 30 grand, and I said, oh, that's fine. Everyone's even the richest people have got budgets, so that's absolutely fine. And with that, you might do some planting and little bit of paving and some lighting. Yeah, so yeah, certainly very early in the conversation. However, we'll probably then put that to one side with a bit of a range, do a design, and then start dissecting, you know, with the contractor, dissecting. I'll put it out there. This is the dream. As that's handed to the client, say, if this is above what you want to do, which it usually is, let's just work together. And we had a meeting recently. We all worked together to try to get it back and said, you know, can we do this component slightly differently to achieve a similar outcome, and also save a bit of money. So it was kind of a conversation between client, design and contractor, and we ended up in a really good place for everybody. And the design didn't really change. It was just materials and construction methodology. So yeah, I reckon that's the best way to tackle budget as a team. And
Yeah,
not just go and get the cheapest price, you know, from different contractors, because
yeah,
we all know how that ends.
yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, I was going to say, like, I think having a team, like the way you say, having a team is the way to go. So have you got land? Because like you'll get to know certain landscape contractors and what sort of price range they're in. So have you got a group that you work with?
Yeah,
a bit?
typically two. There's a few other guys that sort of we do a couple of bits and pieces with. I've got one pool contractor that I do a lot of work with, and a few other that we do a bit of work with. But you kind of get to know. I mean, I'm really good mates with most of the landscape contractors, separate businesses. I just know what they're going to deliver, and you know, they know what I typically sort of what we're trying to achieve, and that's really important. And inevitably, some of the projects go elsewhere, and you know, I find that we lose a little bit of that design intent might shift, because you know, they might have their spin on it and not have such a close relationship with us where they'll know why we've done it something in a certain way. And sometimes that's important, sometimes it's not. So yeah, definitely like to, if possible, keep it with a couple of guys that are smaller businesses as well, which I like the small business kind of operators, and so do clients, I find. Yeah, and really experienced guys that just do a job that, you know, I think the danger of 3D is producing these great 3Ds and everyone's like, oh, that's cool and whatever. But what's the point of doing that if you're not going to produce great landscape constructions? And I'm a bit careful with that with social media to make sure that we're showing that we can actually deliver these designs and not just put out you know, magical 3Ds that look fantastic, and everyone goes, oh, did that ever actually happen? So yeah.
Do you do your own social media?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. So yeah, and look, I've had a lot of exposure to that as well. So that's you know, that's been useful. But you know, at the same time, it's very time consuming, as I'm sure you're probably aware. Well, maybe not so much for some and others, but like I'll be quite particular about what actually goes up and how it goes out. You know, because it is at the end of the day kind of a design. Well, I suppose it's everything really. You want to make sure you're presenting your best self, and it's all presenting in a way that is reflecting what you do and who you are. Yeah, which I enjoy it, and I enjoyed it a lot. Well, I just haven't had time. I haven't posted anything for, you know, other than stories that have been available that someone else might have put up, or I've been able to just chuck on a story. I haven't posted a post for a while, but we've been really under the pump. So yeah, it's probably one of those things that has fallen by the wayside.
Yeah, I think it's the key to it is enjoying it though. You don't want to do it as an addition to your job. You want to do it, you know, because you enjoy doing it. Otherwise, you're not going to be doing it over a long period of time.
Yeah, and maybe it's something that one day I'll give up, but I don't know. I kind of feel like it's the funny thing about social media and in particular Instagram is that, you know, starting out I was like, oh, it's kind of like a bit, you know, a bit weird, and how do I do this and how do I do that? And I actually spoke to Shah Turner, and so mate, look, you know, I find it like, how do I do this? Like, what do you reckon? And he goes, mate, you just got to just be you. And if people don't end up following you or unfollow you, they were never going to be your client anyway. So I thought, oh yeah, absolutely. Like, so I think my social media is very much me and who I am, and you know, and that's it. And you know, I think that's really good advice. You know, like it's sort of, I think it's great advice for particularly guys that do it. You know, it's kind of like not really a guy thing well, traditionally hasn't been. It was very much female driven at the start, I think, or maybe I thought it was. By the time once I sort of got my head around just be yourself, you know, it sort of seemed to be really easy. And then I was like, well, who cares if people unfollow you? What can you do about it?
Yeah, I have the same mindset. Like I appreciate when someone says something nice, but I couldn't care less if they don't. Like, or the opposite. Just
that's their problem, I suppose.
Yeah, because if it's their opinion, not something you care about. So why would their opinion on a social media post matter?
Yeah. It's funny though, because I reckon it's largely very complimentary. Like I wouldn't have. I can't even think of a negative kind of comment on Instagram. You know, probably other forums you've got to be a little bit careful about. Probably, I think something like LinkedIn is something where you need to be a little bit adjust your level of what you're pitching to, because there's a couple of, you know, I reckon there might be a few people looking for holes in what you're doing. I've had that weirdly. So I don't know, and I'll say whatever. Go back to Instagram.
Now, when I first approached talking to you on the podcast, I said I was keen to talk to someone in Western Australia because I follow yourself, Outside In by Denise and Asher Smith, and I think Tim David Landscaping as well. And I found that there seemed to be a lot of white in the WA designs. I don't know if that's in the limestone or anything, but is that something that actually comes in what's constructed as well?
I reckon that. No, I reckon it's just. I mean, I obviously know all those guys. I actually think that the reason I would do it though is I make all the buildings white so we don't get confusing on about finishes on the house. However, and I actually schematically make most things white. We're shifting that a little bit now, just because clients. So the first stage of it for us is 3D concept and about space. It's not about materials and not about plants. So I have strategically made things white in those models. That has sometimes dragged through into construction. I suppose there's a micro cement product that, you know, has probably been we've used a fair bit, and it's a beautiful white render, like smooth render that is probably the white components of ours. Other than that, things do end up actually taking a little bit of a natural tone if you actually look at the outcome. However, there's been a few white structures, and we just put in a white fence. So maybe it is a thing. I don't know, but I do know that over it's very rustic, and you're very. There's a different design aesthetic. So we do have a few similarities. The three that you mentioned as well. So there's a few design sort of things that we tie together, but. You know, I think I'm catching up with those guys on Saturday night, actually. So I'll have a chat to them about it and see if we can get to the bottom of it.
That'd be good. I appreciate it. So you're part of ALDM or ALA or any design associations?
Yeah, so I'm part of ALA, which is Australian Institute of Landscape Architects, and I'm also part of WALDA, which is WA Landscape Designers. So part of a couple. I just recently back in ALA, when I was more commercial, I was in ALA originally, and then I thought, it's a bit more commercial based. So when I started my own thing, I sort of thought WALDA was good for me because it's landscape designers and it's all residential. They're probably little bit slightly different takes on how things go together, and I like the diversity and the difference between the two associations. So yeah, I'll likely stay sort of within both. And it's great to be a part of something, particularly, I work from home. It's great to have a little network, and great to sort of have your, continuing professional development with those kind of bodies as well.
So do you get any work from those associations, or do you do any advertising, or is all your work come from architects? Almost.
No, I reckon I think referral would be our biggest source of work. There's a lot of sort of probably you end up finding out, the new clients are often friends with some old clients that you've done work for. We've got a few great architect relationships and a few builder relationships. So yeah, it's probably I think it's a combination. You never really know unless it's sort of said directly to you that, my mate referred you, which does happen. But yeah, I think it also, there's, I think you're meant to appear before someone 7 times before they call you or something like that. There's some marketing thing, that's where the Instagram kind of might kick in a little bit, because there's a bit of familiarity there, and then you got a website, and then this person knows you, and yeah, it's probably a relationship referral largely for us. Yeah.
Yeah, man, you don't do any advertising?
No. Just Instagram's, if you call that advertising, I suppose. I don't advertise. I think when I first started, I used to promote a few posts, but I stopped doing that after about a year, and I kind of thought, look, they're probably not necessarily real proposition followers anyway, so it's just for the sake of having followers. So just cut that, and probably didn't need it. And I'm sure there'll be a time when we do need to sort of dial that up a little bit. But while we don't, we just sort of continue to float on. Yeah.
Have you got any would your style be more hardscape than softscape, or the opposite? Like, are you more of a plants person than
yeah?
Or does it depend on the brief?
I reckon probably I really enjoy both. I reckon by nature of being a landscape architect, maybe I'd like to design hardscapes and get space, like get the pool. I love pools, so, and the spaces around it. So I probably I would say I'm hardscape, and there'll be people that would be probably more interested in planting, but I really like planting too. And I've recently been out with a client back to their house this week, actually, to sort of, it's been planted out, it looks great, but there's just a couple of things that inevitably there's a couple of little bits that need to be shifted around. So I actually went out and moved some plants around. I'm actually going to keep going back there and just plug in a couple of places and experimenting with plants to sort of evolve that. So I actually really, and I love planting with the contractors. So we had a really great client that we did a project, and we did a baseline planting plan. They got all the plants there, set it all out, and then I got out there, and the client was there, the head contractor, myself went to the local succulent nursery, and I just got, we all got these plants together, additional plants for the project, and then popped them in the back of the ute, went back to site, and then hand placed them in the project. And that's probably one of our most popular projects, and I just think it delivers a great outcome. If you can, it's so much fun to do that and see that last little bit. And then I go there all the time to sort of have a look at it, and you probably see it appear on my Instagram a lot, because I'm it's just really rewarding.
Yeah, I find that I've done that in the past as well, in terms of, but that's just my design skills, is I'm not that good at putting different plants in place, but when I see it, then I can think, yep, I know it's going to go there and there. So it's
I reckon everyone's like that. I would say that we do planting plans, and we kind of sometimes get really stuck on them, and it takes ages to do planting plans, mainly through hesitation of not just doing the same old thing. And I reckon that you're right. Like what I try to do sometimes is say to the client, hey, can you just leave us, X dollars to just have a plant slush fund, and just trust me, I'm going to go and get these plants, show you the receipt, whatever. But just once I can see it in and visualize it, I'll come back and I can just finalize those last important bits that will make it heaps better. And most clients are really receptive to that. Yeah, I reckon you're right. I think that planning plans are really, really hard. And sometimes we'll put them off right till just about a month before it needs to be planted, even though it's, the project's been going for 2 years, because you can see what's going on really well. Even though we do all the 3D modeling and all that sort of stuff, things change on site, and there's a footing in the wrong place, and it's the on-site stuff. Even though we're designers, I think it's really useful.
Yeah, agree 100%. Like I find my design style is lazy because I'll do a lot of mass planting because I can't think of what's going to go there. So it's a lot easier just to put all of the same in there. But
easy to maintain though.
It is, yeah. I also like look at it, so it's not like I do it thinking it doesn't look any good. But we've done a couple of projects for Bethany Williamson, landscape architecture, and she actually does individual plantings with what are they called? Can't remember the name of them. Plants that die back, perennials. So she'll have perennials in there, and it just looks amazing. And she's done it from the design. So it's a bit of talent to have that from the start.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. I reckon that's something that you're always working on, and there's a few key places. I reckon there's a few key practices that really focus really well on plantscape, and I think we're always working on that and trying to look at new kind of sort of species that might be able to work. We've got a really weird climate in the sense that it gets really super dry and hot in summer. So we've got to be a bit careful. Like something that's growing beautifully in winter will just get absolutely smashed in one day of summer. So there's a bit of that to be considered, but I'm sure that's everywhere, that kind of challenge. It's really enjoyable. But I reckon I personally enjoy both sides of hard and soft landscape, but definitely the hardscape on the front end is really what I'm focused on. And then maybe later on the site, when it starts to come together, you really start to get into the plants. So I don't love. I suppose probably in summary, I don't love necessarily just being the guy that comes and does the planting plan. It's probably not really what we do. Even though it might have a really great pool and architecture and all that sort of stuff, which is really nice to be involved with, but if possible, we like to be involved in a bit more on that.
Have you got any changes coming up for the business that you're looking to do? Like you're looking to put on new staff if one comes along, but is there any major changes you've got your eye on doing in the future?
Yeah, look, I think I reckon as this business will probably stay pretty much a little bit on this sort of path, and if we added one more person, I kind of come to the conclusion in my head I want to stay like quite bespoke and be in that space. There's always, I really love business, and I think that there's possibility that we might sort of do a couple of sort of side businesses that we're tossing around a few different ideas. I mean, I've always thought furniture, outdoor furniture in WA is just super hard to get. There's a few good great places to get it, but there's also probably opportunity there. And then maybe even like landscape art, because I love, it's funny because I've started this whole thing because I really liked art, and it'd be pretty amazing if we could end up doing art, like landscape art, and putting into projects. So that's something that, and that might take all different types of, all different forms. So it'd be a pretty nice sort of circle to sort of complete almost. So we're looking at that. It's a bit of a slow burn, but I don't know a massive amount of residential landscape artists in Perth. So if we need to just go and do that, we just have to work out how that might happen.
Yeah, so, I did love when you said that right at the start of the interview about how landscape architecture and construction is like art, because I've said the same thing, like some of the stuff that we do.
Absolutely, I reckon it's it's very much so. So and all the designs kind of like all design sort of transcends everything, so that you kind of see something, you go, oh, that's really cool, and you know, it's great satisfaction seeing it all come together on site, and even the guys that, you know, you go, oh, can you do this kind of pattern of paving? And they go, oh, that's really not the best way to do it, or not that. Why would you do that? And then they end up doing it, and it looks. Everyone goes, oh, that looks awesome. And they're like, yeah, that's awesome. Like that's the great part, you know. And that's part, you know, partly sort of a type of art, you know. And you know, it's really nice to see those guys proud of that as well. As what we are.
Yeah. Now, have you done any designs interstate at all?
Not yet, but it's definitely, I get asked a lot, and I think we might sort of dabble in it a little bit, just with a couple of people we know. But I mean, you know, I've got peers, you know, in Melbourne, and sort of in Sydney a little bit, and I'm kind of a little bit mindful of, you know, sort of respecting their turf of tyres, but they probably don't really care that much either. But yeah, look, I kind of, the only thing I don't like, probably what I'm really honest with clients about, is we can do you a concept, but there's a fair bit, my understanding, there's a fair bit more to what you guys do over there than it is here. So we know our process here. We need to get, you know, development approval. We need to get, you know, engineering and certification for building license. And we're underway. But I think you guys got a fair bit more that fair bit more hoops that you have to jump through. And because we don't know that, I'm a little bit reluctant to. I don't want to leave a client in a lurch and say, oh, I didn't know we had to do that, you know, be all stressed out about trying to get that done somehow. So I would love to JV something with someone over that kind of knows all that side of things.
Yeah,
and
like you say, like the teams you mentioned before, you could have a landscape contractor who knows all that kind of stuff that you kind of all work together.
Yeah. Look, a friend of mine has done a fair bit of that with someone in Sydney, and you know, that's worked really well for them and for both parties, I believe. So it's a possibility, but we've been so busy here that it's just like, you know, why we just sort of remain focused. And I like, it's great to get in front of people as well. I think Zoom is, you know, obviously recent times have made Zoom and Skype and all that, you know, really, you know, we had a Zoom meeting on Monday with someone who lives, you know, 10 k's away, just because they were in different spaces, that they found it more convenient. So, you know, as that kind of breaks the boundaries down, we may, you know, look at different bits and pieces. But look, I'm just trying to probably get our own thing right first before we start trying to take on the world. And very happy with where we're at now as well. So I
think that's fair enough. All right, Tristan, I can't thank you enough for coming on today.
You're welcome.
All the best with your business.
Yeah, thanks very much. Great to speak to you.